Everyone. Um, so we start as usual with the breathing exercise for a few moments, watching our breath mindfully to settle our mind. Then we can try to reflect and contemplate, that even though there are a lot of external challenges, difficulties in our everyday life, the most challenging and most difficult is produced by our own mind, our own emotions. And that is the biggest challenge, difficulties. If our mind is not calm, settled, peaceful, and then no matter what external object, situation, we will always find some problems, some difficulties, some challenges, something to complain about all the time. On the other hand, if our mind is more calm, peaceful, happy, positive, even when we are faced with some challenges, external challenges, difficulties, we will always find something positive in that, in those difficulties, and even help us to grow further and not being so disturbed by those difficulties. And this is our experience, our everyday experience. Therefore, it is so clear that we need to work with our mind, train our mind to keep it more calm, peaceful, and happy, regardless of whatever external situations, circumstances. And it is possible to train and to find certain level of peace, calmness, happiness, even in those difficult times and situations. And to be able to reach to such point, we need to really apply the teachings and practice as much as possible in our everyday life. And more so, we need to apply that even more so in those when we are faced with real situations. And to train and practice, we need to be reminded of those practices all the time. Because when we need it, we tend to forget it. And for that very reason, we are here to be reminded of those core important practices to train our mind. So that we can develop and increase our loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom, and to decrease anger, hatred, ignorance, attachment, jealousy, so forth. And through that, finding more peace, more calm, more joy, more happiness in our life. And through that, to be able to bring more peace, more happiness, more health into the life of others. And may our time together here with the good intentions coming together become cause and conditions to obtain the fully awakened state to each of us, so we can be even more greatest help and benefit to all sentient beings, including oneself. Okay.
Page 73, we'll do the first verse once. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakti clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Page 75, the second verse. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, Homage to the Dharma refuge. Homage to the great Sangha. To all three ever devout homage. To all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms atoms in all aspects. With supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous action. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seekers, subdue the whole faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, stirred by waves, aging, sickness, and death. The short mandala offering, it might be on the bottom of 97 or the top of 98. Refuge in bodhicitta, once in English, twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodan Soki Chonamla Janju Bardu Gani Kapsuchi Dagi Chonge Sonamgi Drola Pencher Sangye Parsha Sangye Chodan Soki Chonamla Janju Bardu Gani Kapsuchi Dagi Chonge Sonamgi Drola Pencher Sangye Druparsho.
Tanje Rujanya Sone, Ta Tanje Pambeja, Tambesha Nentenze, Kodam de la Chaksa. As long as we are in samsara and live in samsara, there is no escape from the problem, suffering, difficulties and challenges. Whether we like it or not, whether we wish it or does not wish it, that is being in samsara, is that, we cannot escape. Only when we are able to free ourselves from the samsara, and in order to free from the samsara, of course, we need to free from the cause that lead us in the samsaric state, and that means overcoming the contaminated actions and the delusions or defilements. Only then When you are free from that, then only we can then be permanently free from any kind of pain, suffering, problems, difficulties on our individual levels. So, because that's the reality, uh, the suffering, pain is part of our life. Is training ourselves how to deal with that and not be overwhelmed by those difficulties, challenges, and problems. How can we train our mind so that we are not being overwhelmed and devastated and by those such challenges, which is part of life? And how can we train so that those difficulties, challenges does not um, make our heart even more harder, instead of being soft, making us more harder with a lot of, you know, um, because it does when we have difficulties and when we don't know how to handle it. And when we experience a lot of those pain, then we tend to become more aggressive, we tend to become more aggressive, um, physically, verbally, mentally. Um, we tend to become more aggressive. We tend to become um, less kind. Um, we tend to become more, less kind and more mean and more cruel, you know. Um, and because we are in this, we ourselves disturbed by that kind of situations and not being able to deal with that, not being able to handle with that. That is what. And so, and so it is a um, learning the tools and how to deal with that, and so that we can not being totally kind of overwhelmed by that situations, not being um, discouraged by such situations, experiences, not losing hope, um, not being depressed and so down, and also not allowing those to increase those negative emotions and to decrease the positive emotions, the goodness, um, and so it's how training that is very important and crucial for our own happiness and for the happiness of people around us and the whole society itself. You know. Mm. And how to learn from those situations, you know, training and learning from that kind of difficult situations and events and experiences, um, how to become even more stronger than in the past, you know, how to become more positive than even before that, how to become even more compassionate than even before that. So due to those difficult situation experience, turning that as a cause and condition to become even more stronger, to increase our practice even stronger and to become even more compassionate, more kind, and it becoming even more, you know, um, positive. Mm. And so, and it whether a particular situation or experience, whether it become a cause of our depression, or whether it become a cause of us to become even more stronger, is not the situation itself, is the way we deal with that emotionally, mentally, how we perceive the situation, how we deal with that, you know. If your mind is not strong, if you don't have a training or tool to deal with that, it can be very devastating, knock you out. Or if you have better way to deal with that and more tools and way to look differently, it can give you even more strength than before. Even more courage than before. Or either as I mentioned, or it can destroy our goodness, our good heart, and make more bitterness, make us more bitter, you know, bitter towards ourselves, maybe bitter towards others, maybe bitter towards the life itself, or maybe bitterness towards the whole human beings, whole sentient beings. Or it can become a cause and condition for us to have even more greater love and compassion to yourself, to the other sentient beings, everyone's. And so that situation can make us go either way, depending on your mental attitude, you know, in dealing with that. And that is the key. And I think all the lojongs, the mind trainings, lojong or mind training teachings are teachings to train our mind to develop such attitude to look every situation in more kind of better ways and deal with that, so that we don't get knocked out by some of those experiences and situations, and that we don't lose our goodness, compassions, and instead increase those compassion and strength and so forth. And there are so many different texts teaching on that, and we have been using this particular text of 37 Practices of Bodhisattvas by Togme Sangpo in dealing with that. Yesterday I was thinking, how, and it is always like that, samsara is like that. When something happens, it helps someone and it hurts someone unintentionally. It helps someone and it hurts someone. It is so difficult to help someone without hurting someone unintentionally. Of course, sometimes there is intention, but a lot of time unintentionally. Even with just the rain yesterday, I was thinking, of course, generally we are excited for this place. We want any bits of rain is needed for the plant, is needed for the place. But then you see those people who have folk arts, who have come from so far away, the people margin who are selling, and people who have come to buy or look, and it hurts them, it harms them, So with that situation, we can be very devastated if we just focus on one particular area of the damage or harm done. Or we can also look for the positive side and not be so down. Definitely there is some, I'm trying to find the right words. I don't know the damage of the loss, loss that bring to a lot of people. If you just focus on that, we can be our mind can be kind of down. But at the same time, we feel the pain and suffering of that damage done to others, the loss done to that. At the same time, there is also good for overall for the whole plant itself, the whole place. And so it is always about where you focus your mind, and it's training to do that. And sometimes in our situations, or some of our friends, families, or someone, strangers, certain experience, certain situations, are very painful experiences, situations, lost, and so forth. But at the same time, if you look also, it opens up another opportunity as well. So if we only focus on the loss, then we can be again very down. Our mind can be very negative and down. But at the same time, while we feel the pain of the loss, the pain of the damage, the pain of that, at the same time, seeing that it opens a new opportunity. I mean, if we look in, even in, in a lot of those natural disasters, it is so painful. So many people has to suffer and go through all of that damage. But at the same time, also it opened a lot of new avenue and work and business for so many other people as well. And that is life. Whether it's natural or whether it's human, it is always like that. Even when you try to help, support, let's say your pets, to support them, the food you buy comes from loss of someone's life. You are helping someone, at the same time, indirectly, unintentionally, there is some other life being taken in order to survive that. And that is same in wildlife. If you see domestic life, that is situation. And, it is always, samsara is always like that. Even when you're trying to help someone, somehow indirectly, some hurt is done to someone. A lot of time unintentionally, and it's so difficult to be able to help someone without hurting someone unintentionally. Being samsara, even for our own survival, even though you don't want to hurt anyone, you don't want to harm anyone, even just for our survival, unintentionally, a lot of hurt, harm are done, lives are taken. And so that being the case, that being the reality, that is the reality of samsara. That being the reality, the point is, two things happening, So with the same situation, damage done to someone and new opportunities provided to someone else, And if you focus so much on the damage, we can become very negative. If you only focus on the positive also, then we might not also feel the damage and the pain of that. And it is always learning to balance that, When your mind is kind of down, to focus on the positive side. And when we are too carried away by kind of arrogance and pride, then also to have another, to bring to more kind of humbleness, humility, and to feel the compassion, again, trying to focus on the damage, the suffering, the pain. And I think it is all, a lot of time we think it's the situation itself. It's not situation itself. It's your ability to deal with that. Your ability to focus your mind in what directions. And I think, and it seems to be, to me, it become even more important to have this lojong practice and apply, because samsaric life is not easy, even with the best intentions. It's not easy. Those are inevitable. We cannot escape. And the only thing that we can do is kind of train our mind how to deal better with the situations, experiences. So we have been going through many different situations with the different verses that he explained. And last week we talked about how to transform the emotions of anger itself for our, onto the path. And so, again, I wanted to kind of, even though example given here is two negative emotions, anger and attachments, and attachment, next verses comes. But we apply that same with all negative emotions, okay? It's like giving one example, but you apply same kind of the method and the practice to all different negative emotions that we might be experiencing, that we might be encountering in our life, So it is important when whatever negative emotions that might be bothering us, that might be manifesting, that might be overtaking us, first recognizing that we are in that negative emotions is one thing. A lot of time people are not even aware they are in that negative emotions. When you know you are in that negative emotion, when you are aware of that, you recognize that, that give you the possibility to change it and do something with that. When you are not aware you are in that, then you have no chance of trying to work with that. And so first, is recognizing and aware my anger is manifesting. My frustration is manifesting or arising, my attachment, my jealousy, my feeling of hurt, guiltiness, all of whatever those different negative emotions, fear, worries, recognizing and being aware of that is step. When we have the awareness and that recognize that and awareness, that means you have made some progress. Of course, there is a long way to go, but you have made some progress. A lot of the people in the world are not aware and recognize that, So even that is some progress. And then, next level of, is to recognizing that you are in that state of mind. And then secondly, being able to observe and trying to, through observations or mindfulness, to able to recognize what are the effects that is happening on you due to that emotions or that thoughts on physical level, on emotional level, you know. So just kind of, just like when you are, let's say, someone, whether it's a child or there's adult or whether even animals, you know, who is acting in a very destructive way, you know, very, very destructive and destructive to yourself, to others, in many different ways. You observe and you see, oh, what is he doing? He's hurting himself. He's hurting others. You know, he's hurting that way, to him in that way, short term, long term, to that. So just observing that same way, to be able the ability to observe our own thoughts, emotions of those. How is it affecting us positively, negatively, on physical level, on emotional level? So we get to have a better understanding of the consequences, the effect of those emotions. So not just through reading the books, not just through hearing, but your own experience, with your own direct experience, realizing it and seeing, oh, that is what it means when in the teaching it says that. Now I get it with my own experience. You know, and when you have that, then we started to have a better understanding how destructive, and with that, then we put more effort to not to uh, allow those emotions to arise, and if you do arise, then how to not to hold on them and how to let it go as soon as possible, and applying whatever different meditation practice method we might have. And so, and with that understanding, when we see the pain and suffering that we go through because of those negative emotions on many different levels, you know, once you understand that through that kind of observations, awareness, mindfulness, when you are aware, you know, how painful, how miserable it makes you when those negative emotions arises, then recognizing and understanding, I'm the not only one who is experiencing that kind of miserableness and pain and suffering due to that negative emotions. There are so many other sentient beings around the world who are also experiencing such a miserableness, such a suffering, such an emotional suffering and pain, just like myself, who are overwhelmed by anger, attachments, all those different emotions, frustration, or whatever, fear, worry. So then that your own understanding with your own emotion, helping you to understand the pain of others who are experiencing similar, you know. So that helped. It was going through that experience yourself is miserable, painful, but the good thing is it helped you to open to see the pain and suffering of others. So in that way, it becomes something positive, helpful. It's not totally negative. Definitely it was painful, definitely is miserable, something you wish not to have, something you want to avoid, but at the same time, when you use that for that purpose, to use that to feel the pain and suffering of others who are going through similar, then it's, you have been able to transform that in that miserableness, that painfulness into something positive, to feel your love, compassion, and understanding and feeling and pain of others. And then, you know, not only that, then once you feel the pain and suffering and miserableness of that others, those who are going through similar experience or even much more worse level, then we can uh, make some kind of intentions, motivations, prayers, by me experiencing that pain and sufferings through whatever negative emotions, that through anger, hatred, or frustrations, or fear, worry, whatever attachment, may they also, by me experiencing that, may they be free from all those negative emotions and the effect of those negative emotions. May they never have to experience that. May I be able to experience on behalf of them so that they don't have to experience that. So then taking your practice to a little bit more higher level, not only you feel the pain and suffering, but now by me experiencing it, may they never have to experience that. May I be able to experience on behalf of them. And really trying to feel it, really trying to have that strong feeling, intention, motivations, and prayers, and that, if we can do that, then we'll take again that to another level of practice. And if we are able to do that, and if we are able to really feel it, then you feel your own pain and suffering being worthwhile to a certain level. It's like you are going through pain and suffering in order to help to reduce the pain or to relieve the pain and suffering of your beloved child, for example. It is pain, but you see it is worthwhile because you are through that, whatever challenges, difficulties, pain, you are able to help someone, your beloved one, your dear one. So therefore you have less resistance to that, less resistance to that, less aversion to that. And when we have less resistance, less aversion to that, it becomes less painful, less miserable. And that is how, because you don't, before it feel it is painful, but it is worthless, meaningless pain. But now it is painful, but at the same time, there is a good purpose in that. There's something positively in that. And so therefore, so your pain become, less. And a lot of time if we see, even on physical level, a lot of the pain and tiredness, all of them also very much depend on our motivation, our mental state. I've noticed myself many times over the years just observing it, For example, if you don't have the real kind of passions and intention uh, to do something, and when you just do it because your friends kind of want you to do and all of that, or because, but it's not coming from your heart, it becomes much more challenging to do that, physically more tiring and more challenging. But when it comes from your side because you really want to do it, same amount of physical work, whatever, uh, you are less tired, whether it's hiking, whether it's jogging, running, all of that. Also, I noticed when we were in monastery, sometimes we have to do the, karma yoga, meaning you have to do the service to the monasteries with the different activities, helping in kitchens, cleanings, all of that, and different things. And also when they build, diggings, carrying the sands, carrying the bricks, and digging the that, feeling it, all of that, we especially at the very beginning when monastery couldn't afford to hire someone, and the monks have to do themselves. And in India, when it is very hot, sometimes it's very tiring, that kind of job, and humid, hot, And then when you reach certain, as you get more and more senior with the years, then you have to do less and less of karma yoga, and then at the one time when we reached certain class, we didn't have to do that. But the monastery was building a new prayer hall because the old one was small. And our class decided we want to offer, it was not required from the monastery that, but then we decided we wanted to do, and so our whole class decided we want to contribute and do service. And so we did that for a few weeks, digging the muds and carrying the bricks, sand, and all of that. And even though we did that at the each of day, I felt less tired because it was coming from my side, and there was joy in that, doing that. You wanted to contribute, and it was coming from your side, and there is joyfulness in that because you wanted to do. And so physically, you felt less tired by the end of the day, and of course, emotionally, there's much more joy, happiness that you have been able to do that. But that wasn't the same cases when it was compulsory, and it wasn't coming from your side. Even though you are doing the same kind of, and so this and so many others experiences over the years, that I have observed, I can see how my mind plays such a huge role, even physically, whether I feel tired, how much tired I feel, how much stress I feel, how much or not feel it, or all of that. And so your mental state. And when you feel whatever you are doing, is something meaningful, even it is physically challenging. But when you feel it is something meaningful, then you have less kind of physical tiredness, pain, miserable. And that will be same with everything. And so that is where, when we practice and train to that, my own negative emotions and the pain and suffering being meaningful, because by me experiencing, others will not have to experience it. And by making that effort, that may I be able to experience on behalf of them, and just dedicating all your virtues to be able to do that. And then you see something meaning, then it becomes less painful, less miserable in that way. And same with every situation, all undesirable, unwanted, painful situation is same when you are able to transform in that way. And then, of course, as all of those Lojong teaching says, on top of that, if you want to go even develop further, not only that, then you actually try to do the practice of Tonglen, taking and giving. Then you take the practice even another level. Not only you think that may I be able to experience on behalf of them, and they don't have the experience by me, but on top of that, now you are not only willing to experience whatever experience you are experiencing, but you are willing to you have the courage and willing to take others' pain on top of yourself. So whatever negative emotion that is bothering you, in this case, attachment, anger, for example. And it can be any negative emotion. It can be, again, frustration, fears, worry, whatever. And then, by seeing the sufferings of others, but with your own experience, and then, understanding, feeling that their negative emotion and the result of that unpleasant, painful suffering of that negative emotions, and cultivating a strong wish to wanting to free them from that negative emotion, and the result of that negative consequence of that negative, painful negative result of negative emotions. And then as you breathe in, you can think and visualize taking all the, for example, anger, and the result, the consequences of all this anger, this painful, miserableness of the suffering, all in the form of black smokes as you breathe in, or dark energy, whatever, and then going through your nostril, and then uh, destroying your selfish attitude, self-centeredness, and then transforming into something loving kindness, compassion, and your whole body filled with blissfulness, joyfulness, happiness because of that loving kindness, compassion. And then when you send out, and then when you breathe out, you can think sending all your goodness, all the virtues, all your positiveness in the form of white light, and then giving them, the persons, someone who is angry, uh, then giving them the positive emotions such as loving kindness, compassion, the antidote of the anger, the opposite of the anger. And then through the consequences of that loving kindness, compassion, instead of feeling with this miserableness and pain and suffering, feeling them with joy and happiness. And so same thing, whatever different negative emotions, whether it's attachment, whether it's ignoring, then giving them the wisdom, the wisdom. And so the opposite positive emotions of those negative emotions, and the positive consequences or result of those positive emotions permeating and kind of feeling the whole being of that person. And so through that, we can do the practice of Tong like that. And so, yeah. So that one, we can apply that to all different verses that we have just talked about, whether it's negative emotions or any situations, unpleasant situations, you know, um, unpleasant, painful situations, experience. So then carrying object of attachment to the path, or transforming the attachment into the path. So again, just as I said with anger, you can apply that same to the attachment. So that way we can kind of transform into the path that way. And so here the qualities of desire ramps, like salt water, increases craving no matter how much they enjoy. Therefore, it's a practice of conscious children to immediately abandon the things that produce attachments. So by understanding, that attachment or craving, can never satisfy your satisfactions. That can never fulfill your. If we follow our desire or attachment or craving, by following that negative emotion, that emotions, if we are trying to follow that so that we can fulfill our satisfactions, because we want to fulfill our satisfaction, because we want to fulfill our desire, our craving, whatever, um, it will never be able to do that. So following that is following the wrong path. You want to go to the east and you want to go to the east, but what you are doing is you are going the west. So you will never reach the destination where you want to go. And if our goal and destination is to fulfill, if it is to fulfill, our desire, our needs, our satisfactions, then you cannot follow the craving and desire, attachments. That will never lead to that experience, that goal. It will only lead the opposite way. You become more and more dissatisfied. You become your desire increase more and more by following the desired attachment, and your attachment increase more and more. So, as it give an example, many examples given in different sutras and in different teachings. Here one of the examples here giving is like if you feel thirsty and you wish to fulfill that thirsty, in order to fulfill that thirst, if you drink a salted water, would it fulfill that? Will you be satisfied and quench your thirsty? It might give for a moment, but then because of the saltiness, then you want more. And then again, you drink salty water to fulfill that quench, and again, you want more. And that never leads to the first wish or goal, desire to quench the thirstiness will never be achieved. And again, it is nothing complicating philosophy. It's our experience. It's our experience, everyday experience. We always think, if when we have, one, if we think we can get two, you will be happy. Once you get two, you will be not happy. You think I will be happy if I get three. And if you get three, you will not be happy. And you feel I will be happy if I get four. And that is why all the time, to us, no matter how much our investment increases, those who invest, no matter how much our salary increases, we are always wanting more, not happy. Always wanting more, and always feel if I get a little bit more than that, I will be happy. And once we get there, we are not happy. It's just like salted water, It's always like that. Therefore, those who are paid 7, 8 hours per day, for an hour, they are not happy. Those who are paid, 50 per hour are not happy. Those who are paid 1,000 per hours are not happy. Those who make minimum, those who are in the middle, those who make most, still all are not happy. All are not. The most richest person in the world, the most poor, all of that. As long as we have that desire, that attachment, that craving, all of us are unhappy. Until we give up such attachments, desire or craving, And when you feel satisfied and content with whatever you have, whatever you are, Until then, you will never be happy. But once you have that, then you will be happy. Once you find that contentment, that satisfaction, then whether you are the lowest level of the I don't know, rich scale, whether you are very poor, whether you are middle, whether you are very rich, wherever you are, you will be happy. You will be happy. You will find happiness in your life, satisfaction in your life. But if you don't have that, then we will always be running and chasing after something all the time, which we will never be able to catch it. You know, it's like trying to catch the hens, wild hens. You know, in those times maybe you might be able to catch. You know, but these cases, you are trying to catch something, you will never be able to catch it. And so therefore, letting go of attachments, you know, in order to find happiness for yourself and others, you know, driven by that bodhicitta mind is the practice of the bodhisattvas. So we will have. So again, when we are trying to work with our negative emotions, such as attachments, anger, you know, there are quite a few different levels of working with that, you know. On the highest level, you know, when we are the wisdom realizing the emptiness, or wisdom realizing the subtle impermanent, or when wisdom realizing the essenceless of the object of desire, and so forth, you know, especially with the wisdom realizing the emptiness, then we try to overcome the attachments through that wisdom by applying the antidote directly. And not only the antidote directly, but even very the root of that attachment itself. But then if we don't have that special insight, the wisdom, you know, also even through karma abiding or shamatha, then again we can, through practice of that, you know, even though you don't have wisdom to overcome the very root of that delusion and direct antidote, but through shamatha, karma abiding, you can kind of stop the delusions such as attachment from arising. When you focus your mind or whatever the object, whether it's a breath, whether it's an image, whether whatever you keep, because you are so focused and totally, your mind is totally focused on that, so no other emotion arises in that state. And so therefore, such as attachment, anger, does not arise. You do not kind of give an opportunity to that to arise while you are in that state of mind, you know. So in that way, it is not kind of cutting from the very root, but it is kind of being a little bit kind of overwhelming and not allowing the negative emotion to arise. But for someone like me who does not have the wisdom, neither the karma abiding, then I think have to apply the basic for the very beginner, and that is distancing yourself from the object of attachment. And that is why here he is saying about that too, you know. abandon the things that produce attachments, So trying to keep distant from the object of your attachments, which we have talked also in the past, at different occasions, I guess. And that one we can apply immediately, we can apply immediately. And especially inside and karma abiding, it is still long way to go, even though we can apply certain level of that, even we don't have the realization, but still. But what we can apply now immediately is then trying to kind of distance ourselves from the object of attachments, and so thereby giving up the object of attachments, and so if there is no object, there's less attachment, less desire in relation to that objects, and that means you are not bothered by that, and so in a mind training teaching, they say, when you have an attachment, when you don't have attachment, maybe you don't need to give the things. But when you have attachments, and when you have difficulty of letting it go, giving, then that is what we try to do. So train ourselves to let go of attachment. And so for us, things we are not attached, we don't want, we give. No more attachments, no more needs. But if we really practice and apply those, like such as these teachings, and that is what they encourage to apply into, especially those which were when we were very attached to, and so learning and training to give those objects which are more attached to and which we find more difficult to give, and training to do that, and starting with small things, we can start with small things, and practice is all about that things, starting with the small things that is more easier. And I think, and it's very true, it's very true, probably you can see with your own experience, I see with my own experience, the more thing I have, the more worry, more attachment I am. The less thing I have, less thing to be attached, less thing to worry, in the monasteries, when you don't have anything, you can keep your door open. You don't need to close it, nothing to lose, nothing, you have no attachment, nothing to lose there, release. But slowly, you have some little bit of things, valuable things, then you start to, feel like you have to lock, and if you forgot to lock, then you might get worried, whether it's a car, whether it is a house, whether it's whatever that, all of that. And that just make us more worried, more of that. So it just increased. The more object we have of our attachment, the more it increase our worry. And so therefore, in one of the sutras, it says, the objects of desire or attachments, bring you a lot of harm and a lot of sufferings and a lot of fear, and you have more enemy, and again, I think that is also The more rich you are, there are more people who are more wanting to get from you. There are more people who are jealous with you. There are more people who dislike you just because you have too much. All of that, So in that way, indirectly, you create more enemy. If you don't have anyone, if you have less, there's less people competing with you, less people jealousy of you, less people trying to get from you, uh, and less people basically um, less enemy in that way, and therefore there's a less danger to you. The more you have, the more, and there in that sutra here it said attachments like the blade of the razor. Uh, what do you call? Huh? What is the saw? Ready saw? Saw だからですね。The blade of the blade, the edge or the blade of the knife or saw, you know. Is and so here it doesn't, but in some others it says, it's like probably you have heard many example of that. It's like a attachments like leaking the honey on the blade of the knife, you know. So when you lick it at the very beginning, there is sweetness, and then it cuts your um, tongue if you keep on licking. And attachment at the very beginning, it seems like it gives you some satisfactions, some joy, some happiness. But in the end, in long term, it brings you more pain and more suffering, more damage. So, um, and then it says, it is like a poisonous, poisonous tree and poisonous um, branches. Um, and it is also like the container of the container of the like urine and caca and like that, and so therefore the Arya, by seeing all the disadvantage of the um, attachment, then you should try to reduce and overcome the attachments. Mm. And I think it is in another Nagarjuna's. I think it is in Precious Garland. I think it is Precious Garland. There is where he says, emba. I think it's something like leprosy, or maybe when you have some itchy, due to some sore, Um, so when there is something sore, there some what you call a rash, maybe some kind of rash, and if you scratch it, it gives you some kind of satisfaction, isn't it? But if you keep on scratching it, then you will make sore and wound it, and it will an attachment like that. It's like when you're scratching the sore. Very beginning, there's some pleasant feeling, and so therefore he said, even though scratching the rash give you some pleasant feeling, it's better you don't have the rash to start with. In the same way, he said, even though the attachment give you a little bit of satisfaction at the very beginning, it's better not to have the not have the attachment to begin with, And so therefore, training and learning to let go of attachments by seeing that is the cause of, the object of attachments is the cause of all our conflict in this world. The tension between the, 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 the animal realms and the human beings is attachments, because we want to control everything and taking all their homes, all of that. The tension between the human beings, conflict, all of attachments. Country to country, they go to war because of attachments, wanting to control the object of attachments, whatever those objects might be. Resources, areas, things, space, all of that, even within the states, the conflict within the state, again, because of, again, a lot of time with the resources, all of that, the object of our attachments. And, it also happens also in the families, relationship are kind of break up due to the things that we're attached to. And sometimes those things seem very insignificant, nothing, but still people fight for it because we're so attached to it, So because of attachment, it's very strange, how we human beings, ordinary human beings, sentient beings, on one hand, we complain because we don't have good relationship with our families, with friends, and that, and we always feel that, and we try to improve the relationship, hard. On the other hand, we break those relations very easily due to being attached with certain things, small things. And so you can see the attachments can destroy all the hard work, all the relationship that we have built up easily. And lose everything that you inspired for. Yeah, I mean, you see in the news, and you see also on, not only the news, on individual levels, and so many, where in the family so much fight, and whole relationships, such a good relationship at the very beginning, totally break, and everything on the basis of certain wealth, And so we can, of course, if we don't have attachment, we wouldn't care about it, we wouldn't be, if, that wouldn't make us to have that conflict, But it is the attachment, because we all want, I want, you want, he wants, she wants, and nobody willing to let it go, And everyone wants more. Everyone wants that one. And the others are not willing to give. And because, again, the reason why I'm unable to let it go is because of the attachment, And it is so sad, but you often see in the news, and you often hear individuals all the time. And therefore, in a letter to the framed by Nagarjuna, where he says, among all the wealth, the best wealth is the sense of contentment. And he said that has been said by the Buddha, which in Buddha's Sutra it has said. And so, and I think that is the thing, if you have the sense of contentment, regardless what your external situation is, you are rich in your heart. And that is all it is. And if you don't have contentment in your heart, you might be billionaire, but your mentality is poor mentality. Mentally you are poor. You still feel this poor mentality still, oh, I don't have enough. Still, I need more. I don't have enough to give, enough to share, enough to do this and that. Always not enough, not enough, not enough. This mentality, On the other hand, you are totally content and satisfied, and you might have very little, but you always feel, I have more than enough. I have more than enough. And that is the rich mentality. And when you have that rich mentality, you are more happy in your life, less miserable. On the other hand, regardless how much you have, if you have that poor mentality, miserable all the time, it's like hungry ghosts, internal hungry ghosts. And as I've mentioned many times, and if we see a lot of other negative emotions, it comes from the attachment. A lot of time our anger arises from the attachment. Our jealousy comes from attachment. Sense of competitiveness, that kind of attitude, mind, come from, again, attachment. A lot of frustrations come from attachments. We want something, we want to achieve something, we want something, and we're so attached to it. And when we feel we struggles to achieve it, or it takes time to accomplish it, and we get frustrated. Or maybe we feel someone is creating some kind of obstacle to achieve that, we get frustrated. A lot of fear, worry, come from most of our fear and worry, feeling of insecurity, all of that come from attachment. So in that sense, attachment is much more worse than the anger itself. And also attachment more pervasive, more pervasive in our life. Anger once in a while, due to certain causes or conditions, but attachments, seem to be there most time, almost all the time. And therefore, I guess we need to put more effort in trying to work with our attachments. And also because of the attachments, the attachment is also obstacles to have true loving kindness, compassion, unbiased loving kindness, compassion to all sentient beings. When we have attachment, then our mind becomes biased. So then when your mind is biased, then it is impossible to have unbiased, impartial, loving kindness, compassion. So you can see how attachments play a huge role in all of that. So we need to work as much as possible to attachments by seeing the destructiveness, harmfulness of attachment itself, and by seeing essenceless and meaningless of the object of attachments, meaningless. And that the object of attachments do not last, by seeing the impermanent nature of that, whether it's sentient beings, whether it's external objects such as, form, sound, smell, food, object to be touched, whatever those different object of five desires, whatever, by seeing each, all of them, nothing lasts. Nothing lasts. Nothing can give us lasting happiness. All of those objects, nothing can give us lasting happiness. And so by seeing more, as we see more that, then we become less and less attached to it. And if we don't have attachment, then well itself is not a problem. But when you have attachment, then it becomes a problem, The phone itself is not a problem, but when you have attached to it, then it becomes a problem. And same with every object, But sometimes, we like to kind of maybe not we, some of our mind like to trick us, and we get tricked into it, Oh, it is attachment. It is, if I don't have attachment, this is okay, and I need this. Oh, if I don't have attachment, I can have this one. And we keep on doing that. I saw one, where was that? I don't know, somewhere I saw a cartoon, someone saw a cartoon. There was a teacher, a monk teacher, and some of his disciples. And then the disciples, the young monks, asking the teacher, "Can I have an iPad? Can I keep an iPhone?" And the teachers, "You can keep as long as you don't have attachment."